Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Steel Mint Engage, a 5-day webinar series which would cover a broad spectrum of topics ranging from iron ore, coal, scrap, and steel. The idea is to understand the perspective of industry leaders on various topics identified for discussion and enable our clients to have a better understanding on how each sector is likely to pan out in the near future. I'm Madhumita Mukherjee, editor, Steel Mint, your host for the afternoon. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our esteemed sponsors for the event, NMDC, Tata Steel, and Runta Steel. The topic for this session is, will India's steel exports hit an all-time high in FY22? Just a few lines on the topic from our end. The world's top steel producer, China, removed the export tax rebate for 23 steel products from August 12th, the second adjustment in 3 months, as it seeks to ensure domestic supply while controlling output to curb emissions. Against this backdrop, experts are upbeat on demand from Indian steel overseas for the current financial year. China's move has paved the way for India to enter new global markets where the former has dominant market share. India's total steel exports stood at around 19.15 million tons in FY21, and in the first half of FY22 itself, steel exports have breached the 10 million mark. Our honored guest this afternoon is Mr. Rajiv Vyas, Director, Vinar Overseas. Mr. Vyas, a steel professional, has been leading his company, Vinar Overseas Private Limited, from the front. Vinar has a strong presence in imports of critical raw material, finished steel for high-end auto and the oil and gas industry, amongst others. Without wasting any further time, I would like Mr. Vyas to take over, please.
Thank you, Madhumita, and thank you, friends from the steel fraternity. It's a very interesting subject that Steel Mint has brought about. And just to make a course correction, now I wear the hat of an exporter of steel and no more importer of steel. So my friends from the steel industry should be happier and should be more positive about my involvement in this webinar. Well, China in 2019, when they left the export scene, they left a huge cake of 69 million tons to the world to fill up this gap. And no one else but India was capable of doing so. I still remember some very seasoned Chinese professionals used to tell me that what China achieved in 40 years, India will achieve in 20 years or 15 years. And I guess the story is coming true today. As we sit here, India's exports last year were close to about 15-16 million tons, as Madhumita said. And this year we should be crossing 20 million tons, maybe close to 22 million tons. The only one hiccup that I see is on the logistics parts, because the Chinese government keeps shifting the goalpost on the quarantine rules for the Indian vessels, for the vessels originating from Indian ports. And that has hit business very hard in many cases. The second reason for concern for exporters, not for steel industry per se, could be that if the domestic market really hits up a lot in India, then the focus shifts from exports to domestic. Having said that, the story of India's export is very fascinating, which can be defined in just two words: self-confidence and optimism. And when the pandemic started last year in March, April, there was total gloom. And from April end onwards, the whole story turned around. I have seen my colleagues from steel industry working from 7 a.m. in the morning to catch up the China syndrome, booking the orders and then going back late afternoon, early evening into their offices to issue the contracts and execute those orders. It has been an extremely fascinating story for all of us. It becomes more interesting because the story of India's export is extremely broad-based. This is not driven by a few large players, integrated steel mills, or a few very big known names. I have seen that secondary sector coming from induction furnaces, coming from arc furnaces, coming from alloy and steel producers. Everyone has contributed to this story. And this story, I guess, is just begun. I personally feel extremely optimistic on India's growth story for steel exports. I see that 20 million tons we are already touching in this year. In next 5 years' time, we should be at 30 million tons if everything goes together. Another interesting fact that I wish to bring to your notice is that India is no more centric in Europe. India's exports are no more centric in Europe or Vietnam or neighboring countries like Middle East or Far East, etc. But now Indians are reaching to the very exotic locales of South America, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Brazil, Venezuela, Colombia, you name it. I mean, I'm really surprised, I'm really amazed, as well as I'm full of pride for my steel fraternity that they have explored such distant markets, and not in small volumes, but very large volumes, which are shipload basis. In case we are able to control and resolve the issues pertaining to our logistics and shipping, I'm very sure India's story will be an extremely, extremely important story. And the world is looking at India today because China, as Madhumita said in her opening remarks, is making more and more controls and making, as we speak today, just to let you know that Shagang Group, which is the China's largest private sector group, has been told to cut back production by 25% or below with immediate effect, because they were told by the government to cut back production by 50%, which they didn't comply, I guess. And now, this morning, there were fireworks in China before Diwali. It was supposed to happen in India, but in China it happened. This could have some dampening effect for semis exports to China, because Shagang was one of the big buyers for Indian semis like billets and slabs. But in overall scheme of things, I guess this will be a very good development for India. Before I conclude, I think while China remains an opportunity for India, I also think that China remains a threat for India, because they have, this year, they have crossed the exports to about 54 million tons, and the Chinese government has stopped any further exports. So starting January next year, Chinese will be again having quota of 50-60 million ton, whatever the central government decides or allows them to export. So this 50-60 million ton may come in competition with India, may not be directly, but at least some price comparisons and some issues will come to fore. In the short run, I think maybe Q1 next year or Q2 next year, we might see Chinese exports finding little steam, or maybe finding little, posing some competition to India. Otherwise, I guess now Indian mills, Indian steel fraternity is quite geared, extremely professional, extremely lean, mean machine to deliver wherever, whatever customers desire. So I wish everyone all the very best in our export endeavors. And as an Indian, I feel proud that I'm part of this story, and I'm contributing my small mite to the whole growth of India's steel exports. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Vyas, for that very, very insightful talk. Now I invite Nitish Shukul, my colleague and co-host of the webinar, to make a presentation. Mr. Shukul drives the steel vertical at Steel Mint. Over to you, Nitish.
I have a small presentation that I would like to share with everyone. I hope it's visible.
To me, yes.
Yes. As Sir rightly pointed out, the Indian steel exports is likely to surpass the FY21 levels. It has obviously gone up 2x in FY21 from around 9.12 million tons in FY14. And we see an increase of around 62% in the Indian steel exports in FY21 over FY20. Now, this has essentially been because, one of the major reasons was the COVID-induced lockdowns in the country that led the Indian mills to explore overseas market to liquidate inventories. Looking at H1 FY22, Indian steel exports stood at roughly around 12.53 million tons, which is up by around 7.5% with respect to the corresponding period in the last year. Moving to the Indian steel exports commodity wise. Now when we analyze this, finished flat, in FY21 stood at around 10.59 million tons, which is up by a whopping 56% when we compare it with FY15. Similarly, in FY21, semis and longs stood at around 7.25 million tons and 1.13 million tons respectively. Again, whopping jump of 494% and 217% respectively. This is with respect to FY15. Now, if I compare H1 FY22 with H1 FY21, finished flat in H1 FY22 was 7.62 million tons, and in FY21 it was 6.32 million tons. Again, a jump of 21%. Semi-finish in FY22 stood at around 3.44 million tons, and in FY21 it stood at around 4.69 million tons. Here we see a drop of about 27%. And again, in finished long in FY22 there is we have 1.49 million tons, and in FY21 it was just 0.63 million tons. So here it's a whopping 163% jump. Moving on to the next slide, which talks about the country-wise steel exports. So again, comparing FY21 with FY15, the total country-wise steel exports in FY21, like I mentioned earlier, stood at around 19.15 million tons, up by 127% when I compare it with FY15. Indian steel exports in FY15 was just 8.43 million tons. Now moving to FY21, exports to China stood at around 5.27 million tons, followed by European Union, which stood at around roughly around 3.25 million tons. Then we had Vietnam at around 2.38 million tons, and Nepal at around 1.90 million tons, and UAE was 1 million ton. Although while comparing FY22 with FY21, we understand that kind of now the trade dynamics have changed a bit, and India hasn't really been exporting extensively to China. So in H2 FY22, exports to China was just close to around 1 million ton, 0.97 million tons to be precise. And a lot of focus is on Europe. So the total exports to Europe, in H2 FY22 stood at around 4.13 million tons, as against 3.25 million tons in the entire FY21 itself. Now, looking at the top exporters, company-wise. So in FY21, out of the total steel exports, 27% was contributed by JSW Steel, which is roughly about 5.14 million tons, followed by Tata Group. They exported close to around 3.75 million tons. JSPL exports stood at around 2.11 million tons. Sales exports stood at around 1.58 million tons. AMNS stood at around 1.46 million tons. RINL stood at around 1.49 million tons, and others contributed to around roughly 3.5 million tons. I think moving on to my last slide, I think this is a very interesting slide. So the total steel exports, including semis, from the world's top 10 steel exporters have grown roughly about 10% year on year to almost 185 million tons in Jan to September 21, as against 167.5 million tons seen in the same period of the previous year. In the entire calendar year 20, total steel exports were at around 400 million tons, in which the share of top 10 was 210 million tons. So, quite evident that they contributed 50% of the overall exports. And, what we understand is that this trend has continued so far in the current calendar year as well. Looking at the top exporters, China leads the charts here with a growth of 34%, followed by Russia. We are seeing a growth of 21%. Japan's volumes were up by 5%. South Korea was quite surprisingly down by 6%. And again, India reported healthy steel exports, and it rose to about 20.4 million tons. I think that's it from my end. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thanks a lot, Nitish, for that detailed presentation. I would like to ask Mr. Vyas a few questions from my end. First and foremost, Mr. Vyas, what has been the impact of China's removal of the export tax rebate on the Indian steel industry?
Well, the Chinese steel become less and less competitive, and Indian steel is able to fill in those shoes where Chinese have left blank. I guess Indian steel will be directly benefited by this move of Chinese government. Not only this, there was also talk of Chinese imposing some export tax. If that happens, then I think this could be truly beneficial to Indian steel industry.
You said that China left a gap of 69 million tons, when it exited the export space to an extent. So how much, to what extent have Indian mills been able to take advantage of that? I mean, would you be able to quantify?
Well, if we say Nitish's own presentation, I think in 2015-16, we were at about 8-9 million tons to close to about 22 million tons now. So India has really scaled up, and at least 14-15 million tons we have filled up to what vacuum Chinese left.
Okay.
I suppose we could have done much more, but for the growth in the domestic market in the last couple of months, as well as a little bit maintenance issues and some shipping issues, and as I mentioned, some goalpost changing by the Chinese on the quarantine issues of the vessels. We could have done maybe, I think, 1 million or a couple of million tons more if that was not the constraint.
Okay. Now, the European quotas have been exhausted. I mean, as per our data, Indian mills exceeded their EU quotas by 145% in Jan-March this year. And also in April-May, volumes were at 1.3 million tons against the actual quota of 0.57 million tons for the entire quarter. Now, what is the current scenario like, and what is the outlook for H2 FY22?
I have seen that lately Indian mills have moved their focus from Europe to other destinations, and rightly so, because a lot of steel is lying in the warehouses. They are in bonded warehouses, awaiting clearances, awaiting the next round of quota releases and all that. And you rightly said 145% quota has been filled up. So it's very difficult scenario for Indian steel exporters, and very maturely so. The Indian mills have taken a decision not to export to Europe. Having said this, the mills have not really suffered for lack of orders coming in from Europe. They were able to develop markets like Turkey, markets like the Middle East. They also walked into Vietnam. They were able to ship some cargo to South Korea. And as I mentioned, even to some very far off locals in South America, Central America, and all that. So I think now Indian steel industry is quite nimble footed now, and the vision is not restricted to a geographical location like Europe or Middle East or Southeast Asia or Vietnam. They are quite widely viewed now, and they are able to take chances, and they are able to explore new options. As we talk here, I think in Europe, there may be some spot opportunities against re-export of their end products. So that could be an area which will be very small niche Indian mills will be looking at, but it will not give any fillip to the India's statistics on exports as such.
Okay. You also mentioned that Indian mills are losing a bit of focus on Vietnam, which has been traditionally been a very good market. Now, with the Vietnam reopening after the strict lockdown, what do you feel? I mean, how much has been what is the outlook like with regard to Vietnam? Why are we not going to focus in future, being such a lucrative market?
Yes, Indian mills are pretty dominant. They were pretty dominant in Vietnam. And in fact, Vietnam has absorbed a lot of tonnages from India when we couldn't move to Europe. What I meant to say, Indian mills have not lost focus, but Indian mills have lost interest in Vietnam because of the pricing issues, I guess. Because in the last 3 months, when Vietnam market was constantly going down and the Russians were playing their cards very aggressively, the first round of bookings the Russians did was almost 840, 845 levels, and second round again they concluded at similar levels. Indian mills were not inclined to follow those price levels for the simple reason that that time a couple of mills had some maintenance shutdowns here, which was pre-planned, and a couple of mills were having orders into the Middle East and Turkey and even to Egypt and Algeria and all these places. So they were not very inclined to follow the Russian price level. The other issue is that Vietnam, of course, I mean, we must mention here that Vietnam customers are willing to pay Indian mills a few dollars premium over Russians, maybe $10, maybe $15, because when Russians were achieving 845s and 842s, we were bidding to our Indian mills 880s and 885s. So almost a good $40 premium Vietnamese were willing to pay. But with the exception of one steel mill and the east coast of India, I think most of the mills decided not to follow even anything that was below $900 mark. As I mentioned, that this was perhaps more to do with the short-term current in the domestic market, and nothing to do with ignoring or not focusing on Vietnam market. Indians are very, very focused on Vietnam, and I think I would request my participants who are listening from the Indian mills to not overlook Vietnam. Even if a couple of dollars less they pay, we should maintain our foothold in Vietnam market. It's a good market, growing market, and logistically, geographically, we are well connected. So we should focus on that. We shouldn't allow Russians and Ukrainians to come and fill up that gap. This should be my strategy, yes.
Great. What has been the impact of the Russian export offers and the Russian export tax on, you mentioned the Russian prices, of course, but what about the export tax impact on Indian steel exports?
Well, Madhumita, the Russian tax impact will be felt by Indian mills only after 31st of December. Imagine while paying 25% export tax, they are still able to export at 845 and 840 to Vietnam. What happens to the pricing post 31st December when the export tax is supposed to end? Because this export tax was levied until the end of the year, unless the Russian government decides otherwise. So if we have to, I mean, just as a thumb rule, we have to understand that $850 and 25% tax they are paying, so they are getting less than $700 in their pocket. If they were to get $700 or $750 in their pocket, they would be very happy to export at 800 or 820 or 825. Fortunately for us as Indians, it has not happened. After the rounds of bookings at 840 and 845, they have raised their prices to $880 now. And it has got more to do with the increase in the scrap prices and increase in the freight and increase, I think, their local logistical cost during the winters will go up. But they are also trying to push up the price a little bit. But you are very, very right. This is one of the threats for Indian steel industry, that what happens post 1st Jan 2022. This will be really, we all have to see and maybe do another webinar on the scenario post January 2022.
You also mentioned that Indian mills are looking at other newer markets like South America. So to what extent have we been able to seize the opportunities in the new and emerging markets? And what does the future look like with regard to these new markets?
Well, at the moment, the opportunity is at a very nascent stage. People have tapped it and explored it in a fairly good manner. I mean, it's not a couple of thousand tons or few thousand tons. It's shipload basis they are able to ship. If they are able to maintain the logistical support from the shipping companies and from the vessel owners and all that, and we are able to cut back a little bit the cost of freight, then it's a big opportunity for India. Second is that Indians have to also adopt a little bit in terms of production, in terms of the requirements of the South American customers. Like they prefer to have smaller coil weights. Indians prefer to ship very large coil weights. They prefer to have thinner gauges. Indians prefer to have thicker gauge and wider gauge. So if we are able to do that, this could be another opening for Indian mills. Not as big as perhaps Vietnam and Europe, but in times of need, these markets can fill up for India, definitely. And going forward, I think shipping will become easier as the shipping capacities will get added from Q1 next year. More and more vessels will come and will become a little bit easier. I'm not saying it will become cheaper, but it will become a little bit easier and better. And it's very easy for Japan and Korea and China from Pacific to ship to South America, but for Indians, it's a nightmare. So I am not an expert so far as shipping is concerned or logistics are concerned, but if my friends from these segments can handle and address this issue, it's a huge and very good opportunity for India.
Right. I have a very general question as the last one from my end. What are the major export challenges that mills are facing in H2 FY22? We have seen the energy crisis looming. Is that going to impact exports in any way in H2?
It might impact because the energy crisis may push up the freights, may push up the cost of production, may also lead to some reduction in the production if we are not able to arrange in a very quick way, the coal and coke supplies.
Right.
Because India's exports are mostly it's not very price driven as such. Indian mills dictate their prices, and they are so far last couple of years able to achieve their prices. So for Indian mills, it's not a humongous necessity to export because the domestic market is so big and so lucrative. More than the cost of energy, I guess, the domestic pricing, the domestic demand will determine India's export necessity. If the domestic market remains reasonably okay, then the Indian mills will remain focused. And in many seminars, webinars, press statements, we always see the big wigs of Indian steel industry saying that if the markets are average, we'll export 10% of our capacity. If the markets are good, they'll raise it to 20%. So I think now, as of now, what is happening is they are rolling back from 18 and 20% of their capacity to 10%, 11%, 9%, 12% towards export. So this could have an impact. But I think, last 6-8 months have been so volatile that people who have got all these grays in the steel industry cannot predict what will happen 2 months down the line. I think as few days back, we were talking about MMK prices 845, 842, and today we are talking MMK prices 880 CFR. So all this volatility, Indian mills, if they are able to address, if they are able to also address their cost of the energy and logistics, we should see India story continuing in exports in Q1, H2 this year as well.
Right. Now we throw the floor open to the audience for asking questions. I have quite a few here with me. One question, Mr. Vyas, is how are Indian mills exports order book for November shipments? And the person is saying that we heard there are still allocations, but lower buying interest from Southeast Asia and Europe. What is your take on this?
Well, I think we both have covered this topic in the previous couple of minutes before. There is definitely low interest so far as Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia are concerned. Also, I guess now South Korea is looking more towards exports than imports. Japan auto industry is not doing so well, so Japan is also not very inclined to import anything from anywhere as of now. Not that India exported to Japan in a big way, but if Japan and Korea comes into export, it will have an impact on India export story. Europe, we already discussed that is run its quota and much more than what we could absorb, we have exported. So definitely the order book for Indian mills is comfortable. I mean, I don't think that there is any crisis for Indian steel mills for orders as such. And the November order, strategically, they were taking low because the festive season coming in India, monsoon coming to an end, economy was picking up and all that. So the order book for export may not be as high as it was a few months back, but they have a comfortable order booking as of now.
A gentleman from Bajrang Ishpat is asking, what is the scope of imports to India if domestic prices continue to rise?
Well, ma'am, India unfortunately has imposed a lot of import restrictions, tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers both. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, growing economy like India, the booming imports are also a sign of a vibrant economy. It's nothing to do with damaging the domestic industry, but if we do little bit of imports allow and the free market factors to allow, it will definitely give a good fillip to the steel consumers in India. So even if we want to import today, we cannot import because of non-tariff barriers. I don't want to name them, but there's quite a few. And the tariff barrier of 12.5% import duty, which is also quite a big, because today any exporter, whether it is sitting in China or Vietnam or anywhere, will pay at least $70, $80 freight. So he has that advantage, disadvantage, then 12.5% duty disadvantage. So I don't think imports will be possible in India. So domestic players will have will only determine the prices as such.
Another gentleman is asking, why aren't there any active steel export offers from Korean and Japanese mills?
Well, I don't speak for Koreans and Japanese, but just to answer you briefly, Japan has cut back a lot of production capacities during this pandemic. You must have read several blast furnaces were reduced, and the Koreans were quite focused on exporting to the USA. Korea was the only country that didn't have these restrictions so far as USA was concerned. Korea was also fairly good, well entrenched into Europe and South America, Central American markets. And I suppose at that time, the Indian Indian buyers were not able to pay what the Koreans were able to achieve in USA, Canada, South America, Central America, and even to their neighboring countries like Japan or Malaysia, Indonesia, etc. And that is why we have not seen the offers from Korea and Japan. Japan, of course, capacity constraint, and Koreans more, it was based on the sheer economics, nothing more than that.
Sir, we have one question. In fact, I also wanted to understand this from you. So the US domestic steel prices are very high at the moment. Why isn't that India is kind of capitalizing this opportunity and diverting significant volumes to the US? If what are your thoughts on this, sir?
Well, US has a very complex duty structures against Indian hot rolled coils. I think they have an anti-dumping duty, they have a safeguard duty, and also that what is it called, 323 or 363. So Indian mills do not want to really annoy the US regulators as of now by exporting anything. It's happening in Canada because the safeguard duty is only 5%. So Indians are exporting to Canada by paying this 5%, but it's not happening to USA. And I'm sorry, I don't have the exact duty structure that is applicable against Indian mills. If on a later date I can find, then I can share with you. But yes, US is a huge market, but we are Indians are shipping pig iron. Indians are shipping some slabs, but Indians are not shipping any finished steel products to USA as such.
Okay.
We have one guest asking, what are the chances of China coming back again with high volumes in the exports market?
Difficult question to answer because Chinese government has been very unpredictable last few years, couple of years you can say. But I think, and we can within a great amount of surety, we can say that they will not be coming back to the export market, at least for a period of 6 months to 1 year. At least 1 year you can say, because they are trying to achieve something known as carbon neutrality. They have this Winter Olympics coming up in China. They want to have the clear blue sky in their entire country. And also the Chinese government has very wisely, I would say, decided that rather than importing iron ore and coal coke from South America and Australia and then making steel and shipping it cheap and leaving behind all the pollution for their people, they are wanting to provide them a more cleaner environment now. And they are working on more value addition items. So as we speak, the overall Chinese export growth has been 28-29% this year, which includes everything. So why would Chinese export steel, semis or hot coils or cold coils, when they are able to export bicycles or tricycles or automotive components or whatever it is? So despite all the noise against China, Chinese exports are growing at about 29%, all the commodities together. And even this year, they have exported in 2021, 53.02 million ton, which was just touching the last year's level of steel only. So what we have forgotten that we don't see the Chinese offers in India, but Chinese are definitely operating in other territories and operating very efficiently.
You mentioned at the initial stage, you mentioned something about Q1 or Q2. Now, what would it be? What sort of a challenge would it be from China for Indian mills? Actually, I missed that portion.
From China, you see, just to put things in perspective, in India, we follow this Q1, Q2 as April to June and I think July, September and all that. Whereas China follows a calendar year.
We know
so,
that.
Yeah. So in case of China, it's from January next year, it becomes their Q1. So this year in 2021, they in the month of May, June itself, they had exported 53 million tons of steel, which was as good as last year's full year export. And that's why Chinese government came very heavily on the steel exports, and they said nothing doing, you can't export, and they started putting one after other barrier. So my submission was that next year, if the Chinese government says, all right, now you guys can export 53 or 54 or 55 or 60 million ton of steel, then that steel will definitely pose some competition to India. Till the time again they exhaust their government allotted quota of exports, or there is self-imposed quota by Chinese mills, which never happens. So I guess this could be one of the reasons and could be one of the causes for Indian mills to brace up during Q1 next year, calendar year next year. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Welcome.
Sir, so I have one question, although this is on imports, but I still wanted to kind of understand your perspective. Of late we are seeing that not a lot of API grade imports are happening in India. Even though the government is quite bullish as far as the oil and gas industry is concerned. So when are the imports, likely to get normalized? When do you see that happening? We believe that the current offers aren't really working out for the Indian pipe manufacturers.
Yeah, Nitesh, the API business is an extremely complex business where the pipe maker has to take a long-term call. He has to give to the oil and gas companies validity of 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, and the pipe maker cannot succeed if he's not backed up by the mill. Until the pandemic hit us hard, it was happening that the big mills from Korea, Japan, China were backing up Indian pipe makers for various critical projects in USA, Canada, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Middle East, and all that. But post-pandemic, no mill wants to take an exposure on any price. So they just give Indian pipe makers a budgetary price, and then Indian pipe maker has to take a call. Now, rightly so, the Indian pipe maker who adds this 15, 20, 30% value cannot be taking call for hundreds of thousands of tons of high-end steel like X70 and X80 unless he is backed up by the steel mill. So that was one reason. And second reason is that due to the labor shortage and due to steel prices going up and all that, lot of project owners have also put their projects, API projects, oil and gas pipeline projects on hold. But I've seen some positive development in the last few weeks. Inquiries are getting back, people are coming back, people are wanting to inquire because there is enough money in the system. The money is not a problem for oil and gas companies, for pipe makers. The problem is on the pricing issues. So I'm hopeful that next year when the Chinese mills restart export drive, they will address a couple of critical projects with Indian pipe makers as well as with some other pipe makers and fill up this gap, because there has been a long time that no oil and gas price steel has been imported. So far as imports into India for Indian projects is concerned, that has been banned by the government under the border policy directive. Any country sharing with India cannot export steel for government projects. So for all these projects of Oil India, Gas India, GAIL, NRL and all that, you see material coming only from Korea. And just to let my viewers know that Japan was never so focused on API. When the countries like China and Koreans were developing API, Japan was too focused on automotive steel. So Japanese are not a big player, with the exception of some plate business here and there. They are not a big player in API for coils. So unless there is an improvement on Chinese supply side, unless there is some policy change in India, you will not see Chinese API coming in. It will come in only for the export purposes, for big projects into Canada, USA, Saudi Arabia and all that, yeah.
Sir, one more question. So, as far as the Indian steel exports are concerned, as pointed out by Madhumita ma'am, Indian mills are now exploring newer markets to kind of explore the opportunity. I was assessing some data wherein, we understood that, some amount of shipments have happened to South Korea as well, which was quite surprising for us. So I just wanted to understand what are the new markets that you foresee that the Indian mills are likely to explore in short to medium term from here on?
Well, I think with the exception of Europe, Indian mills will be focused on every other market, Middle East, Saudi Arabia, North Africa like Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia. Indian mills will also be looking at South America, Central America. Also, Canada now is started picking, as I said, that by paying the anti-dumping duty, safeguard duty, we are still workable in Canada. So you'll see some exports moving into Canada. I'm also hopeful about Vietnam. It will come back, and the Indian mills will definitely take their piece of the cake. These are the areas, of course, then various independent mills have their own areas of operation like East Africa, South Africa. Some people have in North Africa. So I suppose people will find these areas more amenable for exports. I don't know why Indians are not addressing Bangladesh and Sri Lanka as such. Bangladesh is a good market, say, for hot rolled coils. except for their choice of sizes, which Indian mills do not like to produce during this time of high productivity games when mills are indulging in. But it's a good market. So I think eventually, if the situation is hard, they would like to get into Bangladesh market and give competition to the players who are already dominating that, be it Koreans, be it Taiwanese, be it Chinese, Japanese, or Koreans. So I guess it will happen. And as I mentioned, Indians are now very nimble-footed and willing to take chances and go into new territories and take the challenges, which I've seen. We, in our own company, we have seen destinations like Egypt and Algeria taking quite a lot of tonnages from us. So we have enough scope, yes. Go ahead, please.
Actually, I think that was the last question we could take from our audience. We have to wrap up because we don't have any time anymore. Again, a big thank you, Mr. Vyas, for joining us. A big thank you to our viewers for joining in, and we do hope you all enjoyed the session. We would also like to extend our gratitude to the Indian Steel Association and Steel Users Federation of India for their valuable support. This is your host, Madhumita Mukherjee, editor Steel Mint, signing out for this afternoon. Thank you and goodbye.